Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. I'm Rob, your host, and today I'm joined by my wife, Sandra. How you doing, babe?
Good, hi.
So, we just got back from Napa about a little less than a week ago.
Yes.
Had a great trip.
Fabulous time.
Yeah, always fun to go there. It's only our second time going there. We'll do another show about our trip here in just a few minutes, but when we went to Napa, we are wine club members at Robinson Family Vineyards, and Tom and Susie Jinks are the owners at Robinson Family, and Tom was nice enough to let me do an episode of the podcast with him there, and for me it was great, man. I thought it was my first time recording an episode where I'm actually on location somewhere else, recording it. We've had guests on from other parts of the country or the world, but I've always been here in Houston. It's been via phone.
This is your first was a lot of fun on location.
Yeah, being able to sit in their tasting room and record an episode with him, I thought was really, really cool. So I enjoyed that. But anyway, Tom was nice enough to do that. So we're going to get to his interview in just a few minutes. But the interview, we talk a lot about the history and the wines and things like that. But I wanted to talk about our experience at Robinson Family, because it wasn't just going and tasting the wines and visiting this time. We actually got to
stay on the property.
Which I've never done.
It was a great experience.
Yeah, we went to Napa last year for the first time, and we stayed in Napa and whatever at a hotel. Great, had a wonderful time. It was fantastic. But to me, when you go to Napa or any wine region or anything where you're trying to get the full experience of it, and we're going to talk specifically about wine and vineyards here, being able to stay, in a house that's on a vineyard,
enhances the experience.
It really does. It made me just thoroughly enjoy our trip so much more.
Yes, staying in a hotel is perfectly fine, but when you're actually waking up and going to bed and looking out your window to the vineyards and the vines, all that is just amazing and beautiful and really enhances the whole experience of staying in Napa or any vineyard that you go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a small property. They've only got about less than 80 acres.
Right.
And for Napa farming, that's considered small.
When you have all these other bigger areas, when you think of like when we went last year to Mondavi, I thought that was absolutely beautiful too and breathtaking, but it's a lot bigger, and huge. Robinson does not disappoint as well. It's absolutely breathtaking, just a smaller producer, but beautiful area, property.
Yeah, where gorgeous. They sit, Tom calls it the valley within the valley, where they sit. Well, first, let me tell you, they're on the Silverado Trail. They're about probably 3.5, 4 miles going north, and they're going to be to your right. You're not going to see a sign. So if you say, hey, we'll just find them when we go out there's got to be something that says Robinson Family Vineyards. You're not going to see that. So if you're going to Napa and you hear this and you say, hey, let's visit this place. It sounds really cool. It sounds like great people, and it is. Definitely look them up. Give them a phone call off their website. And
go visit.
Yeah, definitely go visit.
You will not be disappointed at all.
You won't.
I have to say that when we first became members of Robinson Family, we'd never even been to Napa at the time.
Well, you made a good point. We were talking earlier about most people. What were you saying about how most people join wine?
Most people join the wine club by visiting the winery and tasting their wine and say, oh, that's really good.
Seeing
Let's
the property.
Join the wine club.
Yeah.
We joined Robinson without ever having been there, so we fell in love with their wine long before we even got to see where it is or talk to the people there or anything like that, which I think when we went, it really impressed us even more.
Yeah,
we fell more in love with the wine and the people and their story than ever before.
I think that's a great point by you, because I think you're exactly right. Talking to a lot of people who go to wineries and things, they go, hey, yeah, we went and visited this place and we ended up joining. And I think that's a great point. But here, you're right. We fell in love with the wine, and it was Rip and Tracy Rutherford and Chris and Terry Chambers. Chris and Terry Chambers, who shared the wine with us several years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, something like that, and just fantastic. And after drinking theirs a few times and going, okay, we got to stop coming over here and asking them to open up a Robinson.
Right.
We need to join the wine club and maybe put some Robinson in our own fridge. And so that's what we did.
And then getting the chance last year to even just go visit the winery and sit in their tasting room, it just made it even more special to us. And then to find out that being wine club members, we can have the opportunity to rent their little house that they have on property even better. And so this time around we went and stayed there and just,
you know, and you
just amazing.
It was so nice of Carrie last year because I would have never thought to ask, do you have a house on property that we can stay in? Would have never even thought to ask that. So for her to say, hey, you guys are wine members, just so you know, this is available to wine club members if you ever want to use it, as long as the dates are available. And we were lucky enough this year that when we planned our trip,
it was available.
It was available, and we got to stay there. And, you know, staying there and waking up in the morning and, you know, you kind of stayed in bed a little bit. I got up I got up real early. I wanted to take advantage of the sun coming up over the mountains and, you know, the little different things that you might see with the microclimates and things like that. And it paid off because I got to see some really cool stuff.
Yes, you did.
Each morning. And, honey, I took video, so you're going to get to see it too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But no, it was really cool because, you know, I'd wake up one morning and it would be a nice, crisp, cool morning. And it would be nothing in that little valley there. And it would just be real pretty to see that sunrise come up. And then you got to see all these, you know, hot air balloons coming over the top of the hill too, which was really cool. And then the next morning you might wake up and it was just covered in fog all the way down to the vines. And as I would, you know, stay out there in that area, you would start to see that fog start to move and lift up through the hill. And it was just really cool to see.
And that's really nice for you to see and record because you hear when you go to these wineries, all the different climates
microclimates that are up and down the valley.
Right. And the fog comes in and the fog doesn't, you know, all this and that. And to actually see it is a whole different thing too.
So my point there is that if you're staying on property,
you
you kind of get that opportunity to maybe see some of those things. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you always will. It depends on what the weather's doing.
Right.
But having that opportunity and just waking up in the vineyard and seeing the guys out there and the gals out there working and starting to prune and get ready for the vines to, you know, wake up and get ready to start producing some fruit. That was really cool.
That's amazing. And then when you're looking at them, you're looking at those vines and you're like, well, grapes are going to be growing on those vines soon. Then those grapes are going to be turned into wine. And I can't wait to say I was there when they were pruning this year's grapes and then getting that in your shipment.
Yeah.
Saying I was there.
And, you know, you guys are going to get to meet Tom here in just a few minutes. We're going to play the interview we were able to do with him. But these are just, you know, like we said, we enjoy their wines, but getting to meet the people. These are great people. I mean, these are just, you know, he's a fingers in the dirt farmer. I mean, not afraid to get dirty. This is a guy, you know, the whole family for that matter are that way. They have those kind of work ethic.
Right. And they not only help do things in their winery, but they are friends with other wineries around them and they help.
Yeah, it's funny how that network is. These guys, and they've been. You'll hear in the interview, they've been in the valley for 50 years or more, longer than that. Tom grew up there, so he's in his 60s. But anyway, just my point about them is they're just a great family. I mean,
very down to earth.
Yeah, visit with them and talk to them and get to know them. These are just all the things that make, you know, enjoying the wine even more for me. It was just, you know, enhances the experience. So I really enjoyed that. And they're a small producer. I think we talked about this. They only make about 1,000 to 1,200 cases a year. So they're not putting out a lot of wine, but it's quality stuff. It's
very
really cool.
Quality.
They have a cool little tasting room that we got to record the show in, which is really cool. They're not like you talked about it earlier before we were recording about how they don't have the big caves like some of the other places, but they do have something that when you go and you do a tasting, you'll be surprised. Yeah, you'll be pleased. You'll be like, oh, that was really cool. We're not going to tell you what that is, but if you go and you do a tasting, you're going to like it.
You'll love it. And I highly recommend Robinson Family is one of the places is a must to go visit.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And for us, that's what we like. We kind of seek out those kind of what we call hidden gems, those small little wineries that are small producers, and that when you go, you have a pretty good chance of meeting the people who are,
working.
The names on the bottle, those are the people you're going to meet.
Exactly.
And that's what I really like. So Robinson does, the Bordeaux kind of wines is what they make. Obviously everybody, Cab is king. You'll hear that said a few times in California, in the Valley. So they make a Cabernet, they make a Merlot, they actually make a Petit Verdot or Cab Franc, and a Malbec. So all 5 Bordeaux grapes, they make them all stand on their own, which is really cool. But then they blend some of them and do some really cool things as well. So just a cool place. I just wanted to, before we got to the interview with Tom, just talk about it a little bit. I will say that when you stay, if you're a member at Robinson, when you stay at the house, it's not just the house you get to take advantage of.
But it's also the grill, the outdoor kitchen.
They got a big outdoor patio and kitchen.
Patio.
Yeah, so they do some cool parties for their wine club members a few times a year. But when you stay at the house, they give you access not to the pizza oven, because that's quite a chore to fire up and get going, but the grill, and being able to cook out there in the evening with the sun going down, seeing the mountains, seeing the vines, having a nice little meal that you cook with a bottle of wine.
Just breathtaking.
It really is. It just, again, getting back to that experience, it just enhances it
even more.
Yeah, it really does.
Even more.
So that's a little bit about Robinson. Definitely go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. They make some fantastic wines. But great family. Those are our kind of places to visit. We just wanted to talk about it a little bit before we played the interview with Tom. And we'll be right back, and we'll have that interview with Tom Jinks. And see you in just a few. Out in Napa Valley, and in the Stag's Leap District. Excited to be joined by Tom Jinks. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Tom and his wife Susie are the owners of Robinson Family Vineyards.
Yes, we are.
And you all have been doing this for quite some time.
Yes, we've been growing grapes close to 47 years. And then the winery got started in 1998 when somebody backed out a 4-ton of Cabernet. We took it to a neighbor winery because we weren't bonded here, and my father-in-law passed away at the same time, so my wife and I started the winery.
Okay, so let's back up and talk about the history of the property a little bit.
Okay.
So in Napa, everybody thinks Napa Valley, it's always been about wine and growing grapes, and everybody out here makes wine.
Right.
They
think everybody out here makes wine, but yes.
Right, for people who don't live here.
Yeah, pretty much the agricultural now in the valley is grapes. On hillsides, there are still some cattle run.
Okay.
But mainly the crop that's grown here is wine grapes.
So when Susie's mom and dad, that would have been Bud and Dinky?
Yes, a Helen. Yes.
A Helen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they purchased the property?
In 67. He retired from the service, moved out here, bought this property, transferred all the horses and stuff, and their only daughter, Susie, out here from Texas.
Okay.
He was stationed at Fort Hood for his last stint in the Army. When they came out here in 67, Susie and I met showing horses and dated in high school. At that time, in front of us here on the property right here in Stag's Leap District, it was mostly prunes, orchards.
Oh, really?
Yes. The wine industry was a sleepy little thing. Prohibition had shut it down. And
so you were telling me before Prohibition, there were over 100 wineries?
There was about 110 wineries before Prohibition.
And then after
that, there was only a few that made it through. Some of them bootlegged a little bit during the time. It bankrupted 99% of the wineries.
When you talk about the bootleg, and I love the story you kind of told me about the light.
Oh, there's a winery down the road here, and I won't say the name because they'd like to tell this story. It's a 3-story building, and when you come up the trail, if you saw a light on in the little window in the 3rd story, it meant that they were open for business for bootleg.
That's pretty good. So when Bud and Helen purchased the place, the intention wasn't, hey.
No, it was not grapes at all. In fact, they had gotten okayed with the county. They never pursued it to put 7 cottages on here in little rentals and have their daughter raise their horse or show her horses. That was pretty much my parents were born and raised here in the valley. And
so you've been here your whole life?
Yes, been here, born, raised. I always joke as far as I got once to San Francisco, turned around to come back. And,
you missed it already.
Yeah. Susie's lived quite a few places in the world, traveled all over the world, been in the military, right? And I've been here all my life. Back when Susie and I met, there were still about 17 dairies still here in the valley.
Oh, wow.
Hay fields. My parents, we did hay fields for our horses and cattle. We're in construction also, but our hobby was the cattle and the horses. And so it just kind of evolved. The valley has evolved. A lot of the dairies moved out of this over in the Sacramento Valley, where they could get a lot more land because the property here started coming up in value.
Right.
It's probably quadrupled since then.
Yeah.
Because around in this little area here, $500,000 to $1 million an acre now for grapes.
And can we share with the listeners when they purchased the property, they got around 80 acres, was it?
It was 78.8 acres, and for $32,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot of money then.
Sure, it was.
You know, same when my wife and I bought our first home and that type of thing. And now we've raised our 3 girls on our other property that used to be in the Coombsville area. Okay. Now it's the Coombsville district. My girls and I went to the same schools.
Oh, really?
And some of my grandkids went to the same school. Now there's 8 grandkids and our first great-grandchild on the way.
And this is Robinson family is truly a family winery. I mean,
it is. There's no other employees in the ranch.
You have
in
3 daughters.
3 daughters. One works full-time. The other 2 have other things. One's a school teacher.
Okay.
One, her husband does bulk wine, and so she helps with that. But anytime we need them, they're here for any of the pizza parties that we do, for wine club members, harvest, bottling.
It's a busy time then.
It's all, yes. Because harvest, some of it's in summer. My daughter with the school teaching's here, but they come up every evening.
Yeah.
They call up and say, who do we need tonight to help crush grapes out or press grapes out that night? So it's all us. We have a vineyard management company now taking care of the vineyard. They're pruning it as we speak. Gets me off the tractor finally and out of pruning a field. As I get older in life, I got to start getting this set up for the next generation.
Sure. And so Carrie's your daughter who works full-time?
Yes, Carrie's full-time in the office. She's the office manager. She does all the wine club. Does a lot of the tasting. She's very busy. Then she calls Robin.
Okay.
She has a set of twin sisters. The younger 2 sisters, Kimmy and Robin. And Robin comes up anytime to help out.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that it's that small family-run, winery, and to me, it just, it kind of gives me that feel that you guys are, your heart and soul's in what you do.
It is. I also had another career. I had a construction business. Did concrete work for 45 years, and I always say that I never once got a thank you card. Yeah. But in the wine business, people come in, drop money, and I get thank you cards invited to their homes all over across the country.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I love doing things with my hands, and so I've always grown stuff, always had gardens and orchards. My wife and I, even when we were dating and after we were married, did hayfields. We're Clos de Vol sets. We used to do the hayfields there.
Really?
Yes, we're Gergich Hill sets. We used to cut the corn silage there for my dad's cattle.
Wow.
So it was a community, a farming community. It still is. It's just more of a luxury farming.
Yeah.
Employs a lot more people than it ever did in the other farming community. Pricked prunes when I was a young teenager. Hauled hay my whole life. I still have a few cattle on the ranch and still haul my own hay. So.
You've had this scene over the years living here your whole life. I mean, I'm sure some of it's good and maybe some of it's not so good at the changes.
I think with growth and change, there's always good and bad.
Yeah.
Our worst is the traffic.
Yeah.
It's different
than it used to be. You got 2 roads in the valley.
Yeah. When I was a teenager in my Camaro, it didn't matter how fast I went up Silverado Trail.
Sure.
Now everybody's stopping and looking at the wineries and
better
takes
be
you a
paying
while
attention.
to get down. Yes.
Yeah. So on the property, did Bud and Helen ever did they get into wine? Is that where the wine started?
They got into the wine, making home wines with 2 neighbors on the road. legendary Nathan Fay that used to own the property where Stag's Leap Wine Cellars is at. They still have a wine there called Fay Vineyards.
Okay.
And then Father Tom Turnbull, not related to the Turnbull Winery, lived on our driveway, which is a mile long coming in. They were the only other people in here, and it was still a dirt road.
Okay.
And there was only a few grapes. They were making home wines. And my father-in-law met them. They invited them down to make home wines. My father-in-law got the bug, and about 1970, 71, we pulled out a horse corral and put in 6 rows of grapes of all different varietals. Nathan Fay planted for other people, so we'd have a few vines left here and there. That hobby kind of went wild, turned into 8 acres over a few years. We built a little garage here for my father-in-law's winery, which is now the tasting room. And that's how it got started. The little press that we used from 1970 to 1997 sits outside the door with some flowers in it. Susie and I dated and grew up here on the ranch, trying our first wines. Some of it wasn't so great when we first had it. We'd pop a little 7-Up and a few ice cubes in the white wines. My father-in-law would turn up his nose, but it's all gone from there. So we grew up on cab here too. And so over the years, we've taken out the whites, put all reds in. And so we do 5, the Bordeaux style.
Right. I saw that, the Cabernet, the Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot.
Yes.
And more cab heavy, I would think.
Yes, yes, we are. We're 2/3 planted in cab.
Okay.
Cab is king in the valley here,
Sure.
and so if we were ever to sell just the grapes, cab's where it's at.
Yep.
And we're planted most in cab. We are doing all the other 4 varietals on the ranch. It's hard to have a wine club if you have cab only.
Right.
Because it's hard to say, do you want cab this month or cab this month?
Yeah, right.
And so we started doing, when we found out our niche was going to be a wine club and work it here all off the ranch, because 99.9% of all the wine is sold right here at the ranch. I still call it a ranch.
So when did wine become hey, we can turn this into a business. We can put this in a bottle and maybe make a little money on this.
Well, we had actually thought about starting the winery in about 1990.
Okay. Up until then, it was just
We were just
home
selling fruit. We were working it on the weekends and after hours and making home wines.
wines. Okay.
I had the ranch down the valley. I had a construction company. My wife did real estate. She raised the girls. So we did this all after hours and weekends. But we had some stuff with the county that we were trying to get straightened out on some lot line adjustments and stuff on some property. And it took us 7 years to take care of that with the county. And so then once that got done, somebody backed out a 4-ton of Cabernet. We finally, all the ducks were in a row. We thought we weren't making any money selling grapes. It was kind of a hobby and farming. We thought, well, let's play with it a little bit. So when we first started with that 4-ton, it was about 200 cases. We figured, well, if it doesn't sell or we don't know how to sell it, we'll drink it.
There you go.
Give it away and drink it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Bud passed away at the same time. It took us about 2 years to get the little winery here bonded. Moved that few cases back to here because we bottled the first cases on another winery. First two vintages. Then moved everything back here. We started with 200 cases. 2001, we brought in the Merlot.
Okay.
Started doing 100 cases of Merlot. So we went along with that until 2005. The ranch that Susie and I owned, we'd planted in grapes. We got that out of contract in 2005 for selling the grapes. Started a second label here with the girls called Great Legs. At the same time, I had planted Cabernet Franc and Malbec on the property. So this came out. So now we had some varietals to start a wine club.
Okay.
And so then we jumped up from 300 cases, getting close to 1,000 cases.
So what's the process for a small winery like that to say, okay, we want to start a wine club? How do you generate the interest in people to?
Well, with our little winery, we don't advertise.
I was going to say, you're hidden.
We're hidden.
If you don't know you're here.
No, there's not even a road sign out on the road. We have to give people directions. Friends started coming up. Somebody'd come up, tell somebody else.
You're not distributed.
No, I did do a little. We did do a little bit in Southern California, and I went down and worked the market a little bit, and found out this is something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So when we were able to have the other varietals, and then a couple of drivers for limousines started coming up. Then they started telling other people, and it's just kind of rolled around to where we have 835 wine club members now.
Yeah.
And we do about 11 to 1,200 cases of wine a year, 2 shipments a year, and we see a few people a week.
Okay. And are you the head winemaker? Or are you the guy who...
We use a wine consultant,
okay,
which is Christoph Anderson. He's got a couple other wineries he do. So him and I talk at least once every 2 weeks. He comes by once a month.
Okay.
I don't see him during harvest at all because he's too busy what he does, but he's in communication. We've been making the wine here as a family for years. I've never had winemaking or chemistry.
Okay.
So that's where I can pick his brain, I can make wine. Now the little nuances on some of the stuff, the tartaric acids and stuff that we have to add, of getting it just right or making sure my pH is right when I have to add some water back. So that's where he comes in, and he's got a super palate and helps with us put together our little Bordeaux style and pick out the few wines that make our reserve. Because
you make some great wines. I mean,
it's the grapes itself.
Yeah.
A winemaker, if they really are honest, only have about 5% to do with what it is at the end. It's location of where the grapes are grown.
And people who are listening, kind of talking about where you're located here in Stag's Leap, you call it the valley within the valley?
It's a valley within the valley because we sit on the eastern side of the hill, right under. We own part of the Stag's Leap Palisades. So on the north property of ours is Stag's Leap Winery. On the south side of us, along our driveway, is Stag's Leap Wine Cellars.
Okay.
And then across Silverado, just in front of us, is a little set of hills. In between that the next little tiny set of hills is Silverado Trail, where Silverado Winery and Pine Ridge is. So they're on a little hillside there. So it's kind of valley within the valley. I would say 99.9% of the people don't even know this little area exists, have never been back in, because there's only 2 driveways back in here. Come back in here a mile.
Yeah, it's tucked away.
It's tucked away because we don't see the Silverado Trail, but a couple of inches of it when we're looking up from the outside, and see a few cars pass by. So we are isolated, which is really nice. We have our little microclimate, different than the rest of the valley. We have extremely beautiful grapes, which give us some extremely beautiful flavors and tastes and aromas. We have a super elegant finesse, or I'm not sure exactly what words to put into it, tannins.
Okay.
They don't bite you in the back when you swallow, but they'll lay down. Our last wine club that went out got one of our 2003 Cabernets, and they were fabulous.
Yep, I got one of those. So I haven't opened it yet, but I'm excited.
Those are 16 years old, so the tannins are there. They just are something that's supple, because most people now want to drink wine when they buy it.
Yeah, they get home and it's that night or the next night and it's gone.
Exactly. They don't want to lay it down for 5-10 years before they can get to it.
But I want to give people a little idea of when we talk about the quality of your grapes.
Yes.
And I think they would know the names Joseph Phelps Insignia.
Yes, part of that comes off the ranch right in front of us.
Right in front of you. And to the side over here we have...
We have Stag's Leap Winery, and then next to Stag's Leap Winery on the same hillside that we own is Schaefer.
And I think when people think about wines that know Napa or Schaefer is one that's pretty well known. Joseph Phelps is pretty well known for having good wines.
Right.
So knowing that you're tucked in that same area.
Stag's Leap Cellars is the one that in the Judgment of Paris in 76 beat the French.
Yeah.
And then with the reenactment in 30 years, their wines held up for 30 years and beat all the other ones again.
That's right.
So we are kind of ground zero to some of that part of Napa. We were raised here, watched this all grow, watched the prunes being pulled out, pick the prunes, watch them, the hay, and watch all these wineries grow and these big, powerful money come in and put big wines. There are still a lot of us, we consider ourselves dirt farmers, and there's still quite a few of us in the valley. We're just tiny, and you have to seek them out.
Yes, and that's I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's fun for us when we come out to try to find those places. It's our favorite places, my wife and I, to come. Right. And, you know, honestly, we became a member of your wine club prior to ever coming to Napa, and that was because a good friend of ours, Rip Rutherford, at his house had opened a bottle and told us a little bit about you all. Right. And after having a couple bottles, we were like, man, this is just so good. The wine's great, but being able to come out and get to know you and Susie and visit and just see your property and just, to your point, you guys are farmers and you guys, you know, fingers in the dirt and you guys have passion and, you know, love what you do. It shows. And I think people who really appreciate wine appreciate that.
Yeah, most people that come to the Valley will hit the big wineries and they slowly start finding the little ones, or somebody tells them, like Rick did with ours. Then it becomes a passion on your part to find the little things you can't find at home.
That's the whole thing for us is, you know, if I can get it at the grocery store in Houston, I want to search out the things that I can't find. And
right.
To your point, you only make 1,000 to 1,200 cases a year.
That's it.
Can we talk a little bit about your wines and, you know, what kind of blends you do, what you're doing now?
Okay, our biggest thing is a Cabernet. Mm-hmm. And normally that's 25, 30 barrels. The last 2 years it's up a little more than that. Out of that, we produce a reserve wine where we'll pick out 7 of the barrels that we like extremely different than the others.
Okay.
Or to some extent different. A lot of that says cooperage, because again, it's still the same cab off the same ranch. So we use a lot of different coopers. We pick on different days, and they ferment out. They all have slightly different flavors. So then when we
and for people who don't know, coopers we're talking about making the barrels.
Yes, the wine. We are a winery. We are the winemaker, but the winery, the cooperage is where it's made. The cooper is the guy that makes it, the barrels. So we use quite a few different ones so we can get some different flavors because we're off the same ranch. Out of that, we also create a Bordeaux style. That is cab heavy because we have mostly cab. But the other varietals we have is the Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, and we've just planted Petit Verdot.
Okay.
In the past, we've bought a little Petit Verdot, and 1 gallon of it goes into the Bordeaux style. We only make 40, 50 cases of that a year.
Right. Well, I want to talk about that one a little bit later because I love the story on that one. So right now, cab heavy, but one of my favorites you guys do is a Cab Franc.
Yes.
And that's obviously everything's small production, but I mean, that's really a small production.
It's from 1 to 3 barrels a year. It's one of my favorite. Most of the people in the Valley use that as a blending wine. Same with the Malbec in the Valley here, and the Petit Verdot is mostly used for blending. We have found that it stands up tremendously well by itself. It's one of my favorites.
Mine too.
It's hard to keep any because I'll keep a couple of cases. I'll hide them from my daughter. She'll oversell and then say, "Dad, where's the Cab Franc?" So I need to find another hiding place, but I'm afraid that I may forget where that is.
So, Cab Franc, do you make them all back?
We make them all back, yes.
I thought you did. I thought
and that used to be 1 barrel, so we're getting that up to 2 or 3 barrels. We're trying to get each of these small varietals up to maybe 120 cases, because the Petit Verdot last year was 21 cases.
And I love that Petit Verdot.
Yeah. So it's things we're trying to slowly, but we can't pull out a lot of property and replant. The rest of our property is too steep by county standards to plant on. So we're limited. Which is fine because, again, we want to stay small. Okay. So we're just trying to, little here or there, replant things that are disease vines. I pulled out a couple of rows of Merlot that were old wide rows because the Valley used to be planted on 12-foot wide rows. Okay. So I pulled some vines that were almost 30 years old and then put back 4 rows of Malbec.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when we were talking about a minute ago, the Bordeaux style, Bordeaux, most people know, is those 5 varietals.
Correct.
And typically, I think in Bordeaux, you have left bank, right bank. One's Merlot heavy, one's Cab heavy. Correct. And the other grapes that we were just talking about, the Cab Franc, the Malbec, the Petit Verdot, we're always kind of that blending.
Yes.
And I think they probably still do it that way. But when we see here in Napa, to your point earlier, Cab Franc is starting to be, to me, very popular standing on its own. Same with Malbec, same with Petit Verdot. Those 3 varietals are starting to kind of get their own lane that they can shine in.
They are. Again, people aren't going to pull out large amounts of cab.
Still cab is king.
Because it's economics too.
Sure.
But a lot of these little farmers like us that had a little piece, and we're doing home winemaking and put a little Petit Verdot, this or that, and now have that. They can't afford to rip it out, put something else. Same with the old Zens. People can't afford to replant, so they still have the old Zen. They fix income, a little money coming in. They sell that to the wineries.
Okay.
So that kind of is why there's some of these other varietals still in the valley. Some of the big wineries that have thousands of acres, our neighbor here has 7 wineries, 7,000 acres. They can take 20 acres and put Petit Verdot in. Doesn't hurt their production at all where they wait 4 years for it to grow. The little guy, a little different than that, so we just find a little spot here and there.
So for people who are listening and getting to know you, and I'm going to say that you're kind of representing all the small boutique type wineries here in Napa. What are some of the challenges? I mean, I'm assuming that there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations. Sometimes is that a little tough on the smaller guy?
Yes. We'll go back. The hardest thing ever is to sell it.
Okay.
To make it's the easiest thing.
Okay.
To grow it is easy. To make it is easy. Produce it. Sell it's the hard part. So until you get the little niche, the other little farmers that don't, there's quite a few little wineries in the valley here or that might do a custom crush.
Okay.
Now they don't have a tasting room. So then they have to depend on either distributors selling it at half price. The struggle is selling the wine and also trying to sell it against the big guys that have the name.
Right.
I'll pour my wine against
marketing
my
budget,
neighbors any day of the week.
Yeah.
We just don't have the marketing budget and we sell it all here.
Right. Yeah, I can see where that's a big challenge for
Yeah.
a lot of the farmers like you.
Yeah, and then the county regulations are getting harder, more hoops to jump through, more paperwork to fill out every year, more control.
It's got to be frustrating.
Very much.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you are the type of people who kind of, built Napa Valley. People
Correct.
like you. And it seems like, in my opinion, they're just making it more and more difficult for you all to still.
It makes it more difficult for the little guy.
For the little guy.
For the little guy, because he doesn't have the staff to have somebody to sit around 40 hours a week doing paperwork for the government.
Right.
Or the county, government in whole.
All levels.
And you have a piece of land, you want to do something, and they tell you can't do it. That's the hard part. And they try to tell us how to farm or take care of our property, and we're better land stewards ourselves than they are.
Yeah, most of them probably never even been on a farm.
No, and most of us on the whole are not going to let our hillsides run off into the creek with erosion and stuff because there's only so many inches or feet of dirt on the hillsides.
Right.
And so we're better land stewards. You just go through the valley and see what the county digs up and leaves, but maybe that shouldn't be in there.
Well, that's fine.
But I think most farmers, I call us farmers, we're growers, are good land stewards. In this valley here,
You have to be. I mean,
you have to be. And in the wine growers in Napa Valley here, there's 600 or more members in it. The Vintners has 560 members in it. That we've passed rules years ago that we wanted the most governed our own selves on how we take care of the hillsides and stuff. But then the county comes in and tries to tell us how to do it even more strict.
Yeah, yeah. How much has, and I know it has to have, the internet? Do you get a lot of your club members?
No.
No, it doesn't really.
No.
Okay, so
we get a few people that when we ask them how you found out about us, we helped you or saw it on the internet looking up small wineries.
Okay.
So we have a good following on that, but 90% of it is still word of mouth.
Okay.
You found out through a friend.
Yep.
I'm sure you've poured wine with other friends.
I'll tell you, every time somebody comes to our house that hasn't been before for the first time, it's your bottle is a bottle I open because I know more than likely it's a high probability they haven't had it.
Correct.
And I know it's going to be a fantastic bottle, so I'm always happy to share it with somebody.
So I'd say half or more of those people will contact us.
Okay. Well,
and come
good.
out.
I'm glad people...
Because we always like to know, who recommended you, because there's no road sign.
Right. So how'd you find us?
How do you find us? Most of the map things don't bring you to here. We have to actually give you and tell you exactly how to get here.
You know who else is like that? Taylor family.
Correct.
We couldn't find them when we had to call and get directions.
And the Taylor family, we've known each other. It's getting close to 45, 50 years.
Is that right?
Yes.
I'm sure there's several families probably out here in the Valley that you guys have just kind of.
Oh, sure. The Ragushis down below from
Jim's
us.
a great
I've
guy.
known them. I knew his parents before Jimmy was born.
Is that right?
Yes. So I've known, being born and raised here in a family, you pretty much knew everybody in the Valley.
Okay.
Because the Valley, Napa itself has doubled in population since I was a teenager.
What is the population of Napa now?
The town of Napa is 114,000 plus.
And back when you were a teenager,
It was
40, 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. There was one high school. Now there's 3 in Napa.
Because I'll tell you, when we came out here last year, it was our first time coming to Napa, and we kind of had that perception of Napa being this, charming, quaint little town, and it wasn't. We got here last year and went, wow, this is a pretty big town. So we were a little bit surprised. We just had that kind of country type of.
It is a little bit. If you drive out of here and get towards the San Francisco or San Jose or anything like that, yes, Napa's very small.
Sure.
It is small, but size-wise, it's small, so
Right.
it does feel a little big. There's only 2 roads that run north and south up the valley here, so it is congested a little bit, a lot more than when I was a child or a teenager.
But I say that to
it.
say, then when we got up to Yountville or Calistoga, then I go,
Right.
okay, that's kind of what I had in mind.
True, and the town of Napa itself, probably 10 years ago, was the same way. They rolled the streets up at 5 o'clock or 5:30. When we were teenagers, there was a curfew.
Okay.
We were only allowed in town on the streets Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Otherwise, you were pulled over and asked, "Why are you out?"
Okay.
And I know your dad, go home.
Oh, there you go.
Thing.
Yeah.
And St. Helena and Calistoga was the same way. The streets rolled up. The place shut down. There was hardly any restaurants. Now we have some of the best restaurants in the world.
Yes, you do. Some very worldly famous chefs have places here.
True, because this is where people. I think Disneyland is the only place that draws more people than Napa Valley.
That's not just California. That's in the United States.
That's in the United States.
Wow, that's quite a feat there.
Yes.
So I want to get back to farming a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can look out and see the vineyard and everything looks so beautiful. But one thing that I think about is, how do you protect your fruit as it starts growing from birds and critters and things like that? Is it a problem, or is there?
Oh, sure, it's a problem. It's part of nature. You kind of give up a few rows towards where the trees are, because that's where the birds will land. You put little streamers out to reflect, to try to run the birds off. You deer fence to keep the deer out, because we're not allowed to shoot the deer.
Okay. It just is what it is.
It is what it is.
Okay.
Where there's low spots in the valley where we get frost, we have wind machines that during frost, we don't have to worry about that during bud break, which is here probably this next month. March here, we're going to get a bud break. We're starting to see some swelling in the vineyard now with the buds. When the bud break comes, frost can kill the end of that bud, and that cane won't grow any further. Another bud has to come out, and then where you get part of your vineyard that you pick is sugar's right, some of it's too green, not right. So the very low spots, they have to do frost protection.
Okay.
Kind of like you see in Florida, where you see all the
Citrus.
citrus.
Mm-hmm.
There are still a few farmers that will actually turn their sprinklers on, and they'll freeze the water around the grape, which insulates the grape or that bud on the vine to keep from freezing.
Okay, that makes sense. I wouldn't even thought about that.
Or burnt.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of the wines is this a new wine, and it's called 2+3?
Yes, well, it's called a proprietary red wine because we cannot call it Bordeaux.
Okay.
And we didn't want to call it Meritage in joint association. So we wanted another storyline, because on the back of all the Robinson labels is a little story that my 3 girls wrote about their grandfather starting the vineyard.
Okay.
So that was kind of a contribute when he passed away, because we're just starting a winery.
Right.
So in 2012, we decided to do this Bordeaux style. It's a blend, but it does have the 5 Bordeaux in it. So that we wanted a story on it, so that it's got a big copper 2+3. It's Susie and I came together over 40 years ago and had 3 girls. It's all done here on the ranch, on the winery, by the hands of 5. We started with 2 varietals. We have the other 3, and all 5 varietals are in the bottle.
So the 2 represents you and Susie plus the 3 girls.
Right.
And then the same 2
and
with
3
the 2 varietals plus the 3 other in the Bordeaux make the 5 that you currently have.
Correct.
Great story.
Just another story.
Yeah.
It's all about stories, and people want to go home with stories, because you pick up a wine at a restaurant or at a store, cute label.
Yep.
You don't know anything about it. If it's really good, you may investigate or read the back and go further, and then they want to seek that winery out.
Sure.
When you come to the valley and have wines, it's about the stories that you take home. You may embellish it, forget half of it when you tell your friends, but it's the story. It brings you back to the time you were here. It also gets other people to come out into the valley and see us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tom, I appreciate you taking a little time and letting us visit with you a little bit.
My pleasure.
Tell us how people can get a hold of you. Website be the best way if they want to look you up?
Yes, it's under Robinson Family Vineyards.com.
Okay.
You'll
Simple as
either
that.
talk to Carrie, is my oldest daughter, or my wife, Susie. They keep me off the phone.
I've talked to you a few times. So they're not real good at that then.
No, I'm not. What it is, I'm not good about writing things down and who called, when they're going to be
Got the
here.
number, don't remember the name. Didn't write it down.
Pretty much.
Gotcha. But definitely get on there. Phone number's on there. If somebody's making a trip to Napa, they want to set up a wine tasting,
Please
see
do.
the property.
It's 707-944-8004 is the winery number.
Yeah, you do the club membership. The club
is
wine club.
The club membership is just 4 bottles twice a year. You can join the one that's 6 bottles twice a year. That's a shipment in April, which are the new releases. The shipment in November is 1 cab of the new release, and then older bottles.
Okay.
So you might get an older Merlot than the one you got in April. You'll get an older couple other wines, but you'll get one of the cabs set by the other cab that'll either be 2 to 16 years older than your current release.
That's always fun.
Very fun. It gives us a chance, instead of trying to, how do we get rid of the last 50 cases or 100 cases, we just hold them over and then get them back out to wine club members.
And then one of the other things that I like that you do with your wine club members, I haven't got a chance to take advantage of it, but we definitely want to, is you can do a pickup instead of a ship, and you have a big pizza oven out here on property, and you cook and you let everybody come out.
We do 2 pizza parties for the wine club members, and they can bring guests. You bring your wine club member, bring 2 guests,
okay,
no problem. Same with when you come in for tastings, when you're drawing blank, you bring 2 guests, another couple, no problem, no tasting fees. You bring 10 friends, I'm going to charge them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
there's a line.
But that gets us away to anybody that's close. We've had people fly in from the Midwest and come to the pizza party. We'll still end up shipping their wine for them, but we still call it the wine pickup party.
Yeah. They want to come in and have a good time. And
come in and have
that.
a good time. The whole family's here. A lot of times the 8 grandkids are here, unless there's ball games that day.
You need workers, right, for a party like that?
Yeah, because the kids help run glasses back and forth, and,
Sure.
and one's old enough to pour wine now. They used to help make all the pizzas. We have somebody help now, because I had to cook the pizzas, never had a chance really to talk to people.
Right.
Now this gives me a chance to actually turn around from the barbecue or the pizza oven and
say hello
greet,
to somebody
and greet people too.
And that's a big part of why they come is, same with me. I want to get
right.
a chance
And
to say hello to
my
you.
3 girls will mingle through the crowd, pour wines, talk with people, do other sales in the winery. And back to the wine club a little bit. With those 4 bottles, you get an email blast saying what the 4 we suggest. If you don't contact us, you get those 4. But if you want, you can change any of them out or add on.
Yep. I love that about it.
So like if there's a varietal you do not like, or if there's a varietal you tried the last time, want another bottle, you can trade out or add on. So you actually know what's coming.
Yeah. I love that about it because, you're right. There's been times where I see a Cab Franc on there and I go, oh, can I change the Merlot for another Cab Franc? Yeah.
Right.
So that's
our Merlot's fabulous, though.
It is fabulous. Your Merlot is really, really good, but I like your Cab Franc.
I do too.
Yeah. But Tom, thanks again for joining us on this episode. Everybody that listens to the show, please go check them out when you're out in Napa. Get the phone number, call Carrie and them, make an appointment, come out. You're not going to be disappointed trying their wine, and I would bet you probably end up becoming a club member. So
I hope you do get out. And we do love Texas. I've been down there quite a few times.
You've told me that, so
Yes.
I think that's great. And when you come down, we'd love to get you together with Rip and everybody and just have a night to hang out a little bit.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. And until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.